Topics in Math 4.2 Critical Paths. What we're going to work on is being able to find the critical path on the graph, find minimum project time, and find the earliest start time. Okay, so first thing we need to do is focus on finding this earliest start time for each task. The earliest start time is the earliest that a task can begin if all of the preceding tasks are already done. Begin at start and label each vertex with the smallest possible time that it will need before the task can begin. So you're going to add time with the preceding task. If there is a tie or like two different numbers coming from that number, you need to pick the highest value. So I went ahead and looked at the example that we had yesterday from the making the spaghetti. Remember, the top path of this was kind of browning the hamburger and then adding the sauce. And the bottom path of the part of the path was about the noodles, boiling the noodles, draining, all that. All right, so let's come up with the earliest start time at each of these vertices. All right, so the first one, when you start at A, the earliest start time, A is going to start at like minute 0. Think of that. So to get to B, we had to start at A. A took a minute. That was that hand washing. So the earliest start time for B is 1 minute. We already had to wash our hands, and now I can get that hamburger defrosted. Okay, so next we're going to defrost the hamburger, which takes 10 minutes. So before I can start browning the hamburger, I will have spent 11 minutes. So we have to add 1 plus 10 to get to that 11 minutes. Okay, we're going to keep going with the hamburger path, even though it jumps to letter F. So after you defrost the hamburger, then we're going to brown the hamburger. That will take 7 minutes. So before I ever add the sauce, I will already have spent 18 minutes. So come down to F. Before we can start F, the earliest start time for F is at the 18-minute mark. Okay, next we're going to add the sauce and stir that in, warm that up. That'll take 5 minutes. So we want to add 18 and 5 to get to 23. So for H. And actually, I'm going to wait a minute to write down H just in case it takes longer for the noodles than it took for the browning of the hamburger. Because if that took longer, we have to pick the higher number. Okay, because we can't eat until both portions are done. So let's wait a minute on writing down that 23. Does it take longer to brown hamburger or get the noodles ready? We'll see. All right, let's go on the other side there. So the other side from A to D was a minute. So to wash the hands took a minute. So before I can ever start boiling the water, I will already have spent a minute. So the earliest start time is 1 minute after. Okay, and then I need to boil the water, which takes 9 minutes. So before I can put those noodles in, I've already spent 9 minutes. From there, I'm going to put the noodles in and boil them, and that will take 12 minutes. So 9 plus 12 would be 21. Okay, so before I can drain the noodles, I will have spent 21 minutes. And then we're going to drain the noodles. That'll take a minute. So before I can get to eat, it's going to take 22 minutes for the noodles. Now, it said it took 23 minutes to brown the hamburger, 22 minutes for the noodles. So which one should I pick? Again, we can't eat until both parts are done. So we actually need to pick the highest number. Okay, so for H, the earliest start time to eat is at the 23-minute mark. Okay, so notice H. What 2 tasks must be completed before, H begins? Before we can ever eat, we had to first brown the hamburger, or we'll just go with the last step there. We had to do F and G. So F was add the sauce. And then G was drain the noodles. Okay, what is the minimum project time? This is going to be the number at the finish. Okay, so we actually have one more step here. So we said before we can eat, it's going to take 23 minutes to prepare our meal. But now that we eat, we're going to sit down and eat, and that takes 20 minutes. So my end of my project time, end of supper, will be 43 minutes. So the minimum project time we're going to say is 43 minutes. Okay, and then now, what is the critical path? The critical path is going to be the longest path, actually, the one that takes the most time, because we have to have everything prepared or done before we can go to the next, the next project. So before we can eat, we had to have everything prepared. All right, so the critical path, we're going to pick the one that had the highest number there. So our critical path was A, B, C, F, H, and then to finish. Okay, let's try another one of these. Okay, this example is actually in your textbook. It's talking about a yearbook staff trying to get a certain section. I think it was talking about film developed and ready for the yearbook. So it's just like a small little project. How long will it take to get this small project done? Okay, so this one is actually in days instead of minutes. So if you want to think of it that way. Another thing to notice, the ones in your textbook actually have arrows, but it's going to go alphabetical, the way we've done it so far anyway, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So which one, does it go E to F or does it go F to E? It's going to be alphabetic. So E will go to F. Okay, D goes to F, F goes to H, and so on. So we only can keep going forward. So we can find the path E to F, but not F to E. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So our starting project, we're starting it on day 0. All right, so if you want to look at this example in the textbook, it's in 4.1. And this is an older textbook, so when the photos were taken by hand and not digital, but it still can help you think of the idea of it. So we want to buy the film. So we're going to take a day to buy the film. That's for B. So that's part A. So before I ever start part B of loading the camera, I need to have that film. So the earliest start time for B is 1 day. Okay. Then to load the camera, we're going to take a day to do that. So we're going to take a day to load the camera. So now before I ever start C, which was take photos, I've already spent 2 days. Okay. So the earliest start time for C is 2 days. From there, I'm going to take 3 days to take photos. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So far, this project has taken 5 days. Okay, I'm going to jump down to F. So D to F, we took photos and, okay, C was take photos of clubs. D, take photos of sports teams. So 3 days for clubs, 2 days we spent on sports team. So now we're up to 7 days. Okay, and then F is going to be to develop that film. Okay, so it's going to take 2 days to develop the film. So if we jump down to H, before I can print and mail the pages, I need to have developed the film. And so that's going to take 9 days at least. Now you see we have a couple arrows, multiple lines coming to these vertices. So we may end up needing to cross off that 9. We'll see. All right, let's go to a different path. So a different path would have been you bought the film and then you loaded the camera. So B to E, we loaded the camera, which took a day. So before I could ever start E, which was taking photos of teachers, I had to spend 2 days buying and developing buying and loading the camera. Okay, E is going to taking photos of teachers is just going to take a day. So let's go down here and then we'll check up there as well. So we're up to 3 days. So before I ever start G, which was designing a layout, I needed to spend some time getting my film, taking pictures. Okay, now that I have my pictures, I can design my layout. That'll take about 5 days to design that. So I'm up to 8 days so far. So this path took 8 days. Well, the first path of taking the sports pictures and things took 9 days. So you want to pick the highest number, okay? Because we can't mail these pages if only the teacher's pictures are in there and not the sports pictures. We have to have all the pictures in there, okay? All right, so we have one more path here that we didn't look at yet. I'm going to grab a different color here. Okay, we got the film, we loaded it. We wanted to take photos of the teachers, and then, but E to F, we needed to develop those photos of the teachers. So that took a day to do. So we got from E to F that this would be a 3 right there if we develop the photos of the teachers, and then we could develop the film. Then we could get those on our pages. Okay, so that's a 5. So since the 3 was smaller than 7, the teachers' pages to develop only took 3 days, where the sports teams and the clubs were a little bit harder to find pictures of, that took longer. So we want to pick the bigger number, 7. And then down here again, if we did developing the teachers' photos and then getting them ready to print, that only took 5 days. We don't want to pick that number either. We want to pick the one that took the longest. Okay? All right, so now we're able to print and mail the pages, which is going to take 3 days. So this whole project, I want to pick that bigger number there, will take 12 days. Okay, so if we looked at F, notice what 2 things had to be done before we could do F, before F began. We had to have D done. We also had to have E done. Okay, so before I could ever develop the film, I had to have sports photos taken. And I had to have the teachers' photos taken. All right, what is the minimum project time? So again, that would be that number that we got at the end. How long did this take? In all, it's going to take 12 days. There are some parts of it might be done quicker. Like this path down here, we got an 8. And this path going up here in the red, we got a 5. But to get all of this project done, it's going to take 12 days. And then finally, what is the critical path? So the critical path, I'm going to kind of go over this with a highlighter. Again, you want to pick those highest numbers. So it's going to be A to B, and then we've got B to C, C to E. That blue number path is going to be the one that was the highest. So if I write that out, it's going to be A, B, C, D, F, H, and then to your finish line. Okay? All right, I'm going to put another example up here and then you guys can try it. So go ahead and pause your video, try this one out, and see if you can come up with it. All right, so this one had 4 different paths, and the one that takes the longest, meaning it would incorporate all of these activities, would be the one going from A to B to D to G to H to I and to finish. Okay, so how long would it take? It would take 19 minutes. And what is the critical path? A, B, D, G, H, I. And then finally to your finish. All right, so go ahead and get started with the assignment. And then feel free to email me if you guys have any questions.